Jordan, would you mind kicking us off for our Excel weekly topic?
Okay, so I get a lot of people asking me on my blog and about how to go about doing training and webinars and things like that, and that's actually something I'm very interested in because I'm new to it as well. So, you know, training is something that isn't just for Excel, although we'll try to gear it sort of in the Excel vein, but also we want our guests to talk about training in general because, you know, it's not just an Excel thing, but especially to the extent that Excel overlaps in analytics training. So how do you, someone you say, hey, I'm an Excel blogger, or I'm just really good at this at work, I love doing macros, or I want to be very good at it, and I want to do training. How do you go about preparing for that class, ensuring that what you're going to teach is what the students want to hear, especially, I don't know if you do webinars, we'll talk about that for a second, because I've done a few of those, and some people say I go fast, which you can see how fast I talk, so it's hard to get me to slow down when I don't see anyone. So that's really our topic. So I'll just kick it off with you, Keidra. In terms of, you know, someone calls you up, or there's a conference says, we have 3 hours to fill, we're going to do a workshop, and you have to come up with the topic, and you have to sort of gauge the audience. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, it's funny because I've mostly done in-person workshops, and I've just now in the past couple of months started to do webinars, and it is very different, and it's much easier for me to kind of control my environment and to plan for in-person. One of the first things I do, especially with analytics, is that you have different audience members that have wildly different backgrounds and different comfort levels. And so I try to find as much out as possible about the audience before I get in, because depending on whether the audience is a bunch of people who are very new to the topic versus a bunch of audience members who are well-versed and need more information, it's going to be a completely different workshop. So the more that I can find out, you know, specifically about the audience and what they need, the better off I am. And usually I'm making changes to the workshop until the last minute. I try to do a survey when I can, a really basic survey, so that I can assess like the comfort level of people, like especially with analytics. Do you know JavaScript? You don't know JavaScript. You have somebody who does know JavaScript where you work. You know, how comfortable are you with statistics? How comfortable are you with Excel? I really try to get a gauge of the audience's background and comfort level, and I start to plan the workshop around that, and then also specific questions, and usually that's how I get derailed, is somebody has a specific question about something, and then, you know, 2 minutes turns into like 20 minutes just
Right.
dealing with that. So
you're speaking specifically about, say, custom. What if somebody says, just come teach us? And how are you about, say, a canned courses versus some custom where you can try to get feedback ahead of time?
I try to customize as much as possible, even when it's a canned course, because a beginning Google Analytics class is way different than the intermediate and advanced. So I try to be as specific as possible. Come in and teach us about Google Analytics. A few years ago, I could do that and I'd be fine. I can't do that now. I need to know where people are at, because I don't want to be in a position where I come in, teach a beginner's level, and everybody knows the basics. They know the difference between uniques versus page views, and they want to know how to set up conversions, how to set up events. They want to know the higher level stuff. I don't want to waste people's time. So if I have a request for an audience, I really kind of get in there and ask specific questions about what exactly they need. And if they don't know what they need, that means I have to go back and say, okay, I need to find out what you need. And if you don't know what you need, then maybe now is not the right time. And that's another thing, especially in 7 years of doing this, I've learned when to say no. When I started this, I said yes to everything. And honestly, that's how I
All right, we're back on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. So here's what you missed. We laughed. We cried. It was brilliant. I went on about a 15-minute monologue on the beauty of training. And basically, here's what we came out with: is pretty much all of us agreed, except for maybe Oz a little bit. I think we pretty much all agreed that, for the most part, using a PowerPoint seems to work pretty well for most of us. Keeping that the content kind of sparse on the PowerPoint to where you're embellishing it, and then moving back and forth between Excel seems to have worked for for most people here.